Thank you, David, for that introduction. I didn't know what he was going to say. And maybe I feel a little bit like you did at that bus station, standing up here in front of all of these people that I don't know. Well, some of you, I guess, I have met, a few of you anyway. But I wish you the grace and peace of God. It is an honor and a joy to be here and to share with you this morning. If some of us are traveling, we were up on the North Shore. And now, when coming in here, we were there for a wedding. It was a wonderful time, and I sensed the Spirit of the Lord at that wedding. And being here this morning, I driving in, I understand I'm in the North Woods now. Is that right? It saw some signs. So from the North Shore to the North Woods, and I feel the Spirit of the Lord here as well. As Dave already mentioned, we live in Connecticut. That's considered the Northeast. And so we're not far away. It's all in the north. And you are welcome to come visit us sometime. Or send your deacon to visit us. He does need a nudge once in a while to get outside of his comfort zone. So you're welcome to send him on a mission and maybe pay it back. I'd like to share from 1 Corinthians 15 this morning. And I don't know if I can share this message without shedding a few tears or not. Sometimes I get a little emotional when I share the word, and I'm not sure why, but except when I was a teenager, I could be around people and I wished for more empathy. I could be with people that were crying about something, and I wanted to cry too because it was something to cry about, and I couldn't really. And so anyway, I prayed one day that God would help me to weep with them that weep and rejoice with them that rejoice. And so you need to be really careful what you pray, because sometimes God answers your prayers in ways that and gives you more tears than what you want. Anyway, I don't know if that's what it is or not. But anyway, 1 Corinthians 15, 10 months ago today, Luke, do you know what you were doing 10 months ago today? Luke is a cousin as well, and he was preaching at my father's funeral. And I had the opportunity several days before that to sit by his bedside and read this chapter to him and others as well. And as I was reading this chapter, I realized Dad couldn't speak anymore, but he could squeeze my hand up until a couple of hours before he passed. And I realized, in a new way, I had a picture of what Paul was talking about here in 1 Corinthians 15, about one glory to another. And so I think I'm not going to read this whole chapter, but we'll read part of it. And then I want to also look at some examples in the Old Testament. But I want to talk about glory, the eternal weight of glory. That is found in 2 Corinthians 4:17. It says, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." Now, when you think of glory, what do you think of?
Something that really shines.
Something that shines. That's a beautiful picture. What else?
No flaws.
No flaws. There's many things that we could talk about glory. But one thing that I would like to draw our attention to this morning is the word glory, especially in Hebrew in the Old Testament, has more to do with weight there's also words that have to do with light. And so you're not wrong. Those responses are not wrong. But the word I'd like to zero in on a little bit is the word wait. And this verse here in verse 17, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. When you think of weight, maybe a couple of examples. There's pens. We all have used pens already. And some of them are really light, right? And when somebody gives you a pen that's really light, well, you just use it and you probably don't really think about it. But what if somebody gives you a pen that's heavy? It's heavy for what it is. And there's weight there. What does that make you think of? It makes me think of quality and value. What if you have a gift that somebody gives you and it's heavy? Wow, what is this? There's some value there. And that's what I'd like, that's one of the pictures that I'd like to impress on us is the weight of glory. God's glory, or God's glory when it came down on the tabernacle. It was something that could be felt, I believe. It's not just a light. It is a light, but it's also something that can be felt. And that's why we can get around Christians today and we can feel the weight of glory. Do we want that weight in our life? Do we want the weight of glory in our life? You know, I really was blessed to be in your Sunday school and listening to the different stories of God and his sovereignty. Do we want more of God? Do we want more of his weight? Okay, 1 Corinthians 15, we'll read a bit here. First of all, verse 12. Now, if Christ be preached that he rose from the dead, how say some among you that there is no resurrection of the dead? Here, Paul was speaking to a group of people that some of them were saying they didn't believe the resurrection. I don't know if there's anybody here that doesn't believe the resurrection or not. I'm guessing all of you believe and would say that, yes, Jesus rose from the dead. He resurrected. But I think among us, among our people, it's this thing of believing in resurrection to new life. We need more of that. We say we believe that Jesus died and rose again, but do we believe that we can die and rise again to newness of life? Are we willing to allow the weight of glory from God to enter into us and to die of self? Are we willing to allow ourselves to die so that glory that can come in, so that we can raise to newness of life? Let's read this and get into that a bit more. Now let's jump to verse 34. No, maybe verse 33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Awake to righteousness. Another word would be sober up, like somebody that's maybe had a little too much to drink, and he needs to sober up. And sin not, for some have not the knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame. You know, ignorance, we say sometimes ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is not bliss in this case when we are asleep spiritually. But some man will say, how are the dead raised up? And with what body do they come? Thou fool, that which thou sowest is not quickened or made alive, except it die. So we need to die in order to live, like seeds. And that which thou sowest not, that the body that shall be but bear grain. It may chance of wheat or of some other grain. But God giveth it a body as it hath pleased him, and to every seed his own body. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. But the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. There is one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. For one star differeth from another star in glory. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in its dishonor, It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit, that was not first which was spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterward that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the Lord from heaven. And as is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy. And as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the earth, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither does corruption inherit incorruption. I'll stop there for a minute. And as I was sitting there by my father and reading this to him, I realized I'm seeing his life get weaker and weaker, or his body, and I realized, wow, this is what's happening right in front of me. His body is dying, but his spirit, which is eternal, will go somewhere else. And the body that God gave him to live here on this earth is not able to see God face to face. Our bodies, our human bodies, cannot see the face of God face to face. They have to die in order to make room for another glory. So it is spiritually. Our spiritual flesh, our sinful nature, if we just hang on to that, and we want to hang on to it, there's no room for that spiritual glory. So Paul said, I die daily. And I think spiritually, in that spiritual sense, if we are willing to die to self, then we can raise to newness of life, from glory to glory. I believe someday that I will see Dad again in a body that is fit for God's physical presence, if you will. But today, and it is a great mystery, I think, that God chose to come to us through Jesus as a man and allow us to have his spirit in us, in these jars of clay, and to represent him, if you will, to allow his spirit to shine through us. Even though we're so imperfect, he wants us and wants to indwell these earthen vessels. And now we have this treasure in earthen vessels. Where is that? That's in 2 Corinthians, I believe. Where we have this treasure in earthen vessels. You know, when you think of earthen vessels, clay jars, they're expendable. And in that time, when the Bible was written, they used a lot more clay pottery than we do today. Pottery might get a little expensive today for us. But in that day, a clay jar, if it breaks, throw it away and just make another one. God puts his spirit in these earthen vessels if we allow him to. And he is inviting us to go, I would say, from glory to glory. There is more to be experienced. That the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. That's what God wants of us. That his power flows through us. So do you believe in the resurrection? Do you believe in the ability for our sinful nature to die and then to resurrect in newness of life here on earth? It's not just a scripture for the future that, we'll resurrect to an even greater body. Yes, I believe it is that. That's another glory. My father passed on to another glory. His fleshly body didn't, but his spirit did. But can we get this picture where God is inviting us to move from glory to glory here on earth, from glory to glory, to raise to newness of life, to allow the presence of God in our hearts more and more. I think there's a great need for this. So let's now look at the example of in the Old Testament. If you want to turn, I'm just going to jump around a little bit in Exodus. And maybe I'll just story form it a little bit. Think with me of a young man. He's probably about 35 to 38 years old. And he's living in Egypt. His father was very likely a slave. And his grandfather may have been a slave as well. And they're building these glorious buildings, if you will, for the Pharaoh, for Egypt. They're slaves. But they built a lot of buildings. They had skill among them. What did they do to make life kind of a normal thing in that day? I don't know what they all did. What did they do to have fun when you were a slave? I don't know what they did. They did sit around their fires and had some good food to eat. We know that because they wished for it when they were in the wilderness. And I don't know, maybe the young men did some arm wrestling once in a while. The Bible talks about the strength of a young man is his glory, right? And the gray hair of an old man is uses another word, but it's essentially the same idea, his glory. Does that mean his wisdom? Possibly. See, we have these different glories, if you will. And we kind of get a good feeling about it if we can arm wrestle our older brother and get him. You can kind of glory over him a little bit. Or maybe your nephew. One time a few years back, he's not here, but, my brother's son, we had an arm wrestling match at a family gathering, and I got him, but I don't want to do it again. Don't tell him. That was a couple years ago, and so as long as we don't do it again, I can kind of glory over it. Well, but these are human, these are fleshly glories. Okay, so this young man, he finds himself in Egypt under the oppression of slavery. And then Moses comes on the scene. And through a series of miracles, they end up at the Red Sea. And everybody's afraid. Almost everyone. Maybe Moses wasn't. And Moses is crying out to God, and God says, "Stand still, and you will see my power." And the sea splits, and they walk through. We were up along Lake Superior for the last 2 nights, and I could just see, okay, would this be the Red Sea? And could this lake be split and millions of people walking across to Wisconsin from Michigan, maybe? Or were we in Minnesota? No, we were in Michigan. Anyway. But thinking about that, okay, fast forward into the wilderness. And this young man is part of this big group of people, and they don't have any water. And he sees miracles, and fast forward some more, and now they're at Mount Sinai. And God is telling them in Exodus chapter 19, "And it came to pass on the 3rd day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God." This is in verse 17. Verse 17. "And they stood at the nether part of the mount." God wanted to meet with his people. And he came in this powerful way. And he started talking to them. And then fast forward to Exodus 20, verse 18. "And all the people saw the thunderings and lightnings and noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed. And they stood afar off." That's such a sad picture, I think. God wanted to meet with them, and they stand afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. They were afraid. You know, fear and unbelief kills growth. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your face, that ye sin not. Oh, if the people of Israel would have only done that. Fast forward, what happens in Exodus chapter 33, after they sin in Exodus 32, when Moses was up on the mountain meeting with God, when Moses was under the influence of the glory of God, what were the people doing? They were afar off, and they started making gods of their own imagination. I don't think they were trying to throw their God completely out and go back to a calf in Egypt necessarily. But they made a golden calf, and the words that are used in Exodus there, if you do a word study, the words that are used are, they wanted to worship God, Jehovah, through this image that they built. And how often do we fall into the same trap where we make an image of something in our minds of, oh, this is God. And then fast forward to Exodus chapter 33. After Moses pled with God and said, no, don't destroy these people. And then he didn't. And then he meets with God again. And Moses' prayer for God's presence in Exodus 33, verse 12. And Moses said unto the Lord, See, thou sayest unto me, Bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know whom thou wilt send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray thee, if thou have found grace in your sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I might find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, My presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest. And then I'm going to jump down for the sake of time to verse 17. And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name. So here Moses is pleading with God, I want your presence. We need to do that today too. And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. He's asking for God's glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. And I will be gracious to whom I'll be gracious, and I'll show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, you can't see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. And you know, although I miss my father very much, and I am glad he could move on, leave his earthly body, and go. I don't know if he can see God face to face yet or not, but I do believe that God is a spirit, and I believe he gives us all a spirit, and spirit to spirit we can fellowship with God. Someday we'll have new bodies as well that can see, I believe, the face of God physically, if you will. But today in our bodies, we maybe can't see God face to face, but we can interface with his spirit because we are spirit. Isn't that a beautiful thing? And here, Moses was pleading with God, I want to see you. I want to see your glory. We can do the same thing today. We can have God's glory within us, yet more and more. And no, it's not just one little shot and then we're done. No, if you want to grow in grace and in the knowledge of his will, we need to seek him day by day, walk with him day by day, and do what Moses did here. And you know, he went and spent time with God, and then his face shone. It's a beautiful thing to get together with other Christians, and you can almost instantly feel a presence. Have you ever experienced that? Where you can almost instantly feel a presence, a weight of glory, I think it is, a little piece of heaven, if you will, or of God. Okay, so here Moses is really pleading for this glory. I want you to get this picture of Moses pleading for the glory of God. and he gets a piece of it. And the people standing afar off. The difference there. Can we draw a lesson from this? Which person do you want to be? Which person do I want to be? Am I the person that will plead for more of the glory of God? Or am I afraid and will stand afar off? What happens then? Some years later, and again, this 35 to 38-year-old man is walking along with this group of people. And Moses is a faithful leader. However, he also makes mistakes. And fast forward a few years, and they're ready to go into the land of Canaan. And they decide to send some spies. And this 35-year-old, maybe 38-year-old man is also chosen. He's one of the 10 spies. And he goes over there into the land of promise. They come back, 2 of these men. One of them, Caleb, whom I'm referring to, and one of them, Joshua, say, we can go. The other 8, they are saying, no. There's giants there. We can't go up there. Let's remember what they all saw and what they all experienced. All of those spies were probably slaves in Egypt. All of those spies entered the Red Sea on dry ground and out again and were delivered. They all were baptized in the Red Sea, if you will. Most of them died in the wilderness because of what? Because of unbelief. Is it because of the condition of their heart was not turned toward God the way Moses' was here? It is written for our learning. Our hearts can be in that same place where we can either say, Lord, I want more of your glory. I want you. I want to move from glory to glory, if you will. I want to go to that promised land. Or we can take that unbelief route and stay in the wilderness. And you know, I did a study recently of how many people went into the wilderness and how many people came out. Their numbers, according to the census the numbers that were counted, they really didn't grow in number. Now, I think they counted the men that were capable to go to battle. So maybe they didn't count everyone. But everyone 20 and over died of able-bodied men. I think with the exception of the Levites. Even Moses, because of what he did, he was not able to go into the promised land. 2 men, Joshua and Caleb. And Caleb said, 40 years later, he said, how old was he? He was 80 years old then, right? And he said, I'm as strong as I was when I was 40. Now give me this mountain. Brothers and sisters, I think that should be our attitude in life. And I think this is what Paul was teaching his audience, that we must believe in the resurrection if you want to be resurrected from glory to glory. I'll just tell you a little story that just happened. It's not of resurrection, but I confess this is where I find myself, where this thing of believing. So we flew to Minneapolis from Philadelphia, and I had the privilege to sit in the middle seat, and on the window seat was a young man. He looked to be about 18 or 20 to my guesstimation. And so after a while, I struck up a conversation with him, and I asked him something about work and what he does for work. And he said, well, I'm trying to finish school. And anyway, we kept talking, and he said, yeah, I got shot at school, and this was some months ago, and I want to get out of Philadelphia. And my grandmother's in Minneapolis, and I want to try to stay out of trouble. His name was Kaleem, I think. Makes me cry to think about it, because he's just 16 years old. And I'm thinking, and I keep asking him questions about life in Philadelphia. And I know that there's gangs there and there's a lot of drugs in some places. And so I asked him about some of these things. And yes, he said, well, you're part of a gang. Well, not really, but he's part of a group. Okay, well, anyway, we keep talking, and he tells me probably 4 or 5 gang names. So it's like, this man, young boy, knows a lot about street life. So then he starts showing me pictures. Shows me pictures of a few of the guns, and when he got shot, he said, yeah, I tried to shoot back. Anyway, painting a picture of a man or a young man that I feel didn't even have a chance in his young life compared to me. Now, what do I do? What do I say? Or do I instantly just go in, wow, that's sad? It is sad. But what do you do when you're in a situation that's really challenging? You only have a couple minutes maybe, or an hour or so. What do we do? Can we believe that this young man is made in the image of God, and that God would want to indwell him through his Spirit and change him? Can we believe that? Or are we like the Israelites in the wilderness, where we're not believing? And you know what God told the Israelites? He said, your children are going to inherit the land of promise. The children that you were afraid would get killed. That's why you didn't want to go. That was their excuse. The children are going to die. Your children will inherit the land, and you will die. And I'm just so challenged, because when I meet a young man like this, what do? What do you say? So anyway, we shared back and forth a bit, and he said, yeah, he's a Muslim now. We're coming down, and it's a little rough. The descent into Minneapolis is a little rough. And through the course of this conversation, he says, this is the first time I'm flying without my mom. He's 16. And this is getting a little rough. And he said, can I hold your hand? Yeah, you can hold my hand. I flew a lot already. I enjoy flying. But you know, everyone that God put on the face of this earth is a human, made in his image. And his will is that we share that glory. Somehow that glorifies God, when his Spirit living within us can shine through our lives from glory to glory. I think Romans 6 might have something good for us to end on. Romans 6, verse 4. No, let's just start in verse 6 and go to verse 9. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know ye not that so many of us as were baptized in Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin. Now if we be dead with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him, knowing that Christ, being raised from the dead, dieth no more. Death hath no more dominion over him. So I just want to encourage us to walk by faith and allow the glory of God to come in yet more and more into our everyday life. We're not going to get it right every time, every minute, but through the grace of God, we can continue. Wherever you are, in whatever condition, there is a way to walk.